Hey guys, and welcome to 𝗩𝗁𝘁𝗃𝗀𝘀, your #1 source for all things films and movies. When it comes to the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, which was so hugely and widely well received in one way or another, whether it was more of a fan reception or in some cases a critical reception too, it's really interesting to look at what went into the making of this movie. Some of the scenes and sequences were so interesting and creative, and when we get to look behind the scenes and see how the creative team who worked on this film were able to come together and come up with some amazing concepts, it's actually something really unique and really awesome to look at. So we wanted to jump into that and take a look behind the scenes at some of the coolest effects and behind the scenes things that went into the making of this film, because there's some really cool insight that you can get along the way. So to start things off, we wanted to take a look at some stuff that the director, Adam Wingard, said directly about working on this film. And along the way, one of the biggest things in general was trying to find the right way to present the characters, Godzilla and Kong. And when it comes to Godzilla itself, it's cool to hear some of the inspiration that came from the original portrayal of Godzilla.
I think one of the most exciting things about doing a Godzilla movie is being able to take a different approach to Godzilla in the same way that the original films did. The legendary approach has always been sort of that Godzilla is a good guy. You know, he's misunderstood, but he's a good guy.
But as it turns out, it doesn't look like all of the ideas and inspirations were taken just from one specific thing. For instance, we do also know that there was another pretty big inspiration that played into how Godzilla was shown off early on, which is actually taken from another film. We wanted to give a quick reminder, we do have a really awesome Instagram page that updates you guys on everything happening Marvel immediately. So if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, check it out, link in the description. There's also a ton of really awesome memes and other things that are posted on there. So make sure you guys are following that page, and let's go ahead and jump into this story.
Equatable to Jaws. So even at the beginning of the film, you know, we wanted to treat it more like Jaws approaching the shores.
Another thing that's really interesting is in the making of this film, one of the largest set pieces that they had to build, which isn't something you really think about when you're actually watching the film, but retroactively, if you think about it now, makes a lot of sense, was the Ghidorah skull that was originally planned to be used to control Mechagodzilla. Now, just the amount of work that went into developing this and turning this into a major part of the story and a really interesting location for where we see, or a set piece or a different type of set that we see in the film, is really cool.
The Ghidorah skull was one of the biggest sets in the film, definitely the most impressive set.
It's not often you get to make like a big giant skull set with computers and wires.
But also another major part when it comes to this film, of course, was the tag team, where we got to see Godzilla and Kong work together to fight against Mechagodzilla.
Something that was really important to this whole ending was that you get those moments where Kong and Godzilla literally become a WWE tag team pair, and they're taking on Mechagodzilla.
And there was a lot of work in just designing the city section that would have kind of this destroyed rubble all over the place.
Gotta think of a football stadium filled with pretend debris and buildings on their edges, and then you've got the other guys putting all the smoke underneath it, and you've just got hundreds and hundreds of people running around running all this stuff.
And then one thing that we loved is hearing one of the main inspirations for that final fight where we see the two working together, and it is pretty accurate but also great at the same time.
So really the first act of that entire fight scene before Kong joins in, it's really just showing how Mechagodzilla has been created to be superior to Godzilla in every way.
My Mecha.
We've developed this monster to take on monsters in a perfect way.
Another major and iconic part about Godzilla is definitely his Godzilla breath, and some of the thought or importance of that was definitely emphasized. But first, we wanted to give a quick reminder, we do have a really awesome Instagram page that updates you guys on everything happening Marvel immediately. So if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, check it out, link in the description. There's also a ton of really awesome memes and other things that are posted on there. So make sure you guys are following that page, and let's go ahead and jump into this story.
My absolute favorite thing that I was always looking forward to in the movies was Godzilla using his breath. I just thought that was the coolest thing every time you got to see it.
But of course, this is a Godzilla movie to some extent, and there are other things that kind of make these movies awesome, and it's kind of the just full-on attacks in one way or another. So they made sure to keep that an emphasis as well.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we had in the script was a really good, just classic Godzilla attacking people, big, massive crowds running away from them and screaming. And with the opening Apex sequence, I got a lot of that.
Now, in general, one big thing, of course, with this film was we would have to some extent, see Godzilla and Kong standing off against each other and fighting, and that's something fans like us fully expected. And it's really cool that in general we did get to hear that this was something that was heavily emphasized, and interestingly enough, this was the first time we got to see these two battle since the 60s, so they really wanted to knock it out of the park and make this a definitive battle.
For us, it was just important that this is just the most epic battle of all time.
Another thing that was really important, and something that as fans we loved to see, was the fact that they didn't just leave it in for some final big battle with a bunch of filler story leading up to that battle. There was definitely multiple encounters of these two, and that was something we thought was really cool, because that's what people were going for when they went to the movie theaters. They wanted to see that standoff, and they definitely delivered in that front.
This can't just be a one and done thing in this film. That won't be satisfying. We knew there had to be at least two fights between them with some sort of escalating factor.
But another thing that was really awesome was at the end of the day, we knew that there would be these two monsters pitted against each other. And of course, there's always the possibility that there will be something bigger or worse that shows up and maybe they'll have to work together. But at the end of the day, the conversations that fans have are more along the lines of who would win in a fight. And whether it went one way or another, fans definitely wanted to see one winner. And that's something that the director definitely saw through and through and played it out, and just the way and the attention to detail that they went with that was really cool to see.
Let's look at these two monsters objectively with all the skills that they have individually and what actually happens when you put them together and they fight. What does that actually look like, and who would actually win? And at the end of the day, it's really the most important thing, even beyond who was the winner, to me going into it, is that there absolutely had to be a winner.
Actually, there's some other really interesting things that we can take away from a lot of these behind the scenes things. Like, for instance, a lot of the earliest scene building that is obviously going to be very focused on CGI is really interestingly crafted, especially when you get to look at the pre-visualizations that they use to make some of these scenes in the earliest stages for planning purposes.
Adam had like a really strong visual sense of what he wanted to see, and it started with like a few moments. There's like a moment that he's had from the very beginning where Godzilla's doing kind of a circular atomic breath and can opening all of the skyscrapers around him, and he wanted to see Kong running away from him and using the buildings as kind of a concrete jungle, and they've kind of built out from there with Owen and Tom Hammock, our production designers.
Similarly, they kind of did the same thing with some of the set pieces in using Hong Kong as one of the main for that final battle.
You have Hong Kong, where even though it's coming into a city and you would think it's Godzilla's element, we've redesigned Hong Kong with these very tall super skyscrapers that are essentially like trees.
But then, of course, the biggest shock or surprise, or maybe something that fans really wanted to see, was Mechagodzilla's appearance towards the end, and it was really awesome. But what's cool is they did pay a lot of attention to looking once again to the source material and kind of understood what made the earliest versions of Mechagodzilla interesting and kind of acknowledged the origins to that type of character.
Mechagodzilla exists originally as a Toho creature. He was quite clunky in a way, kind of like a man in a suit of armor.
It was important that he has the vibe of what you're familiar with, but has a bit more of a modern functionality to it.
And of course, they definitely leaned in heavily to the mecha side of Godzilla, giving him really unique weaponry alongside his unique design.
This is our own Mechagodzilla, and we're really looking at design aspects of tanks, huge mining and construction equipment to bring Mechagodzilla to life.
This is also something that's a little bit insightful, but if you look at the difference between the design of choosing Godzilla, but then the mechanics of trying to bring it to life, it is kind of this interesting balance.
The design of Mechagodzilla was pretty straightforward because the artist just did a great job in nailing that. But the mechanics of Mechagodzilla fighting was much more challenging.
The way that it's intertwined two absolutely strong creatures with a humanized background story, and the way that they connect, this sort of idea of idolizing and at the same time the future with the mechanical side of it all.
The whole movie, especially like both of your scenes, was a lot of CGI. So you were basically running away, fighting things that weren't actually there. So how was that? Like, how did you handle that?
You know, I was used to CGI just because of the show that I'm on, and also the film that I had done before this, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I was very much used to the CGI kind of monsterverse.
So what did you guys think of this film? Were you a fan? And do you think seeing the insight from behind the scenes makes it easier to appreciate the film? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this, uploaded every day of the week. That's it for today though. We'll see you all next time with a brand new video.